What up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast. Here with my friend today, the Big Bad Wolf. We are doing another Kaiju Spotlight, and today we are doing Mechagodzilla. And just a little bit of background: the Mechagodzilla is basically first introduced in 1974. One of my favorite films ever, by the way. He appears in 5 live action movies. He's been in a lot of other anime stuff, but for the live action, it's been 5. And basically, he is like this mechanical, symbiotic robot that was designed in the same. Yep. We got our mechas. Mine's a little smaller, but
mine's bigger.
Yeah, that's what they said. Anyway. I'm still waiting on that Rhedosaurus, by the way. But yeah,
so, here's your Rhedosaurus.
Mechagodzilla was basically first created by aliens to take over and destroy Godzilla, and in his image, he had like the suit, Godzilla suit, in the '74 version where they were trying to dupe humans, and they're thinking that Godzilla was taking over their planet and shit, but. The Mechagodzilla has kind of changed over the years, and I don't know, what was your first introduction to Mechagodzilla as a fan of Kaiju?
It was actually the 1974 film, because when I was 5, there was this daycare, or it was kind of like my parents were back in Vermont. They had me stay the day at this house, and this woman kind of watched kids for the day. And I was 5. I remember 4 or 5, I crawled upon through this closet, and I found a double feature VHS tape of Godzilla vs. Gigan and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. And I remember I just took it home with me. I'm just like, no, I like this. I just literally took it home with me, and no one said anything. No one noticed or anything. I literally just had it with me. And so it
was how I was too.
And that's how the 1970, and so that 1974 film was definitely my introductory to Mechagodzilla.
Yep, that was mine for both Godzilla and Mechagodzilla. Actually, that was the first time I'd seen either one. And
yeah, my introductory was Godzilla vs. Gigan to the entire franchise.
Yeah. Let's see. So, when we talk about the different versions of Mechagodzilla over the years, obviously this is the basic one that we saw at the beginning, through like the Terra Mechagodzilla and 74,
the OG.
Yeah, and then of course over the years he's kind of like taken different forms. In fact, he's also been used as an ally to humans in some cases, with Kaiju, and of course so on and so on, the very different versions that we've seen. One thing I did notice, like over the years as well, that like early on with Mechagodzilla, was always like either aliens or humans were kind of controlling him. We had like the soft AI, but then after a while, the AI was sort of taking over and sometimes kicking them out of the system. Something that we saw with the MonsterVerse as well, where they were trying to do the same thing, but Ghidorah's essence, I guess, took over over
the AI. Which that was definitely a nod to Kiryu. That was definitely a nod to Kiryu, because in Godzilla against Mechagodzilla in Tokyo SRS, because so context people, Kiryu is built out of the remains of 1954 Godzilla that was killed by the Ocean Destroyer. And what happens is, under certain circumstances, like for example, if he hears Godzilla's roar, or if Godzilla's life is put into jeopardy, Kiryu on this hand will pretty much just go berserk. And he will just level the entire town, because it's like his other side of him is finally taken over. Well, this wasn't exactly AI, it's more or less, even though it should be AI, but what's going on is kind of like the spirit of Godzilla's taken over. Whereas MonsterVerse, it was kind of the same thing. Somehow part of Ghidorah's consciousness was still inside that skull, and so Ghidorah took over.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too that was pretty cool about the MonsterVerse version, was that when we think about a symbiotic biotic creature, it definitely runs on power, but at the same time, it doesn't have the same issues that like a flesh creature would have in terms of fatigue and staying power and all that other stuff we saw. So I like that the MonsterVerse gave him like this massive amount of energy that Godzilla just Godzilla couldn't match. Like it was just Godzilla would be worn down, and so that kind of led to like where the point where almost Godzilla gets taken out. If not for Kong. Which brings me to another thing about the designs and over the years. Like, in your opinion, like, how do you look at Mechagodzilla in terms of like as a villain? Because we talk about King Ghidorah and how Ghidorah is like one of the top villains that Godzilla ever has, but it usually takes more than just Godzilla to try to take it down. So same thing with Mechagodzilla. He's always kind of had to have this partner in some way take down Mechagodzilla. So how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, I mean Ghidorah is definitely number one because he's the one that pushes Godzilla to his very limits. But Mechagodzilla is definitely number two, though I like to argue he's his most dangerous foe because Mechagodzilla came the closest to killing Godzilla. Because if you go back to 1993's Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Mechagodzilla is literally this close from ending Godzilla, and then Rodan came in and revived his second brain. Same in Godzilla vs. Kong. Ghidorah dropped Godzilla from the sky, and monsters Ghidorah dropped Godzilla from the sky, but thanks to Mothra's life force, Godzilla was fully revitalized. Whereas Godzilla vs. Kong, it didn't matter whether Godzilla was full of energy or worn down. He legit was this close to getting his life ended. And so Mechagodzilla is definitely number two because how I put it is in Ghidorah's debut, it took 3 monsters to gang up on him. In Mechagodzilla's debut, it took 2 monsters to gang up on him.
Yeah.
And the thing too with Mechagodzilla is he can't get tired. He's a machine. He can keep going as long as there's power and fuel. Whereas an organic flesh life form like Godzilla and Kong, they will eventually tire out. Yeah. Because they don't have what Mechagodzilla has, which is he's just a machine with wires and power and fuel. So he can just keep going for as long as he needs to. Or at least as long as whoever is in charge of controlling him can keep him powered up for it.
Right. Yeah. Eventually, you probably have to find a way to resource himself. And I think, was it Kaiju or one of them had like solar energy they were using?
I know Kiryu. It's like they had to tap into all Tokyo's power because something happened to a Godzilla caused Kiryu to shut down, and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. And the crisis was if they had to repower Kiryu, they would have to use all the power in Japan. But the only way to do that was they would have to black out all of Tokyo just so Kiryu could get back to being can get power back up and fight Godzilla again.
Yeah. Yeah, I also found it funny is because for those that had never seen the movie Ready Player One, they actually had a version of Godzilla in this.
And I think that's the design they use as a reference for Godzilla versus Kong. Because everything looks because it looks similar, especially look at the hands. The hands are definitely the same. So they definitely use that as a point of reference. And like Ron from ETN, he even argues, he mentioned it makes sense that they'll use Mechagodzilla, not a different IP, because because of the fact that they had Mechagodzilla and Ready Player One, WB still had the rights. And thus it was cheaper to just incorporate Mechagodzilla into that. Now, given note, they still had to pay to use them for a certain amount of minutes, which is why Mechagodzilla wasn't in there for too long, because they would have to pay Toho for extra minutes, so they would have to pay them more money.
I probably do the same thing when they had Gundam in there as well. I'm sure.
I forgot that.
I mean, I'm pretty sure throughout that whole movie, because it's all about nostalgia. So everything from the games, the characters, they had to like make sure they had all the rights and all that stuff. So I mean, it's a great movie. I love that movie a lot. So
I watched it for the first time. My friend goes, "John, look," and go, "Yeah, I know," because I've already seen clips of that.
Mm-hmm. So how did you feel about like how Mechagodzilla's transformation over the years has played out? Like, did you like the fact that they kind of brought him in as a hero, sort of, or?
I mean, I didn't mind that because of course, like saying the Haysayer, Godzilla was so powered up that they needed some countermeasure to go against him because he was a threat. So it made sense they built Mechagodzilla out of the remains of Mecha King Ghidorah, which is a very interesting concept. So I didn't mind the design, but I had a friend of mine that he doesn't like it because they felt like they just made Mechagodzilla 2 into a Gundam. Because he just had no personality. It was just humans controlling a gigantic robot version of Godzilla. There was like no personality or anything. There was Mechagodzilla, yes, he was an alien. He was being controlled, but he had some sort of personality because all he had to do was, because in 1974-75, Mechagodzilla, pretty much the black hole space apes could pretty much just say, Mechagodzilla, destroy that town, and Mechagodzilla could just go and carry out that command without being controlled. All you had to do was tell him, hey, go off this guy, and Mechagodzilla literally going off that certain target. Like, that's all you would have to do to Mechagodzilla. Whereas Mechagodzilla 2, you would have to power him up, fly him over. He had to be piloted by five to six people, each one doing
it's almost like Voltron.
Yeah, they're all doing a specific job for Mechagodzilla. Each one plays a certain part for Mechagodzilla. Then Godzilla against Mechagodzilla Tokyo SOS. It's piloted by people in a plane until something happened that forced him to have to be inside Kiryu himself. But even Kiryu still has some sort of personality to him. Because it was kind of, you could control him, but it seemed like Kiryu had his own personality once his Godzilla side took over.
And I think that's important because, you know, while some people might want to have had Mechagodzilla have its own identity, I think that's consistent the way they did it with everything that we've seen with Mechagodzilla. Like, it's always consistently there. So there's always going to be like a human or alien tech attachment to it. You know, it's not like it's going to be Gundam or any kind of special robot like Jaguar or something. You know, it's not going to be like that necessarily.
Well, it's like, again, it's like Godzilla versus Kong. That one was definitely a reference to Kiryu because of how they did him. Because his skull was Ghidorah. Pretty much the whole control panel where you could control him was pretty much Ghidorah's skull. And then something happened to it. Ghidorah took over. I think it was the Hollow Earth energy that corrupted the powering and the wiring and the programming that caused them to snap back to reality. And then there goes the person actually controlling him just dying. And then he just turns on the people that created him and then went to kill Godzilla. And so it's very interesting to see because it's like he still had a personality. There was still a hint of 74 in there, but it was mainly Kiryu that you could see most of because he just had that personality of, okay, this guy's fully taken over now, and so I have no one holding me back anymore.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite version of Mechagodzilla, like all time?
I would say Showa. Because you just can't beat the OG design. You can't beat just how he was as a villain. Because like he was terrifying. He was pretty terrifying. I liked the fact that they had him disguised as Godzilla at first to keep that facade. And like a friend of mine still complains about how badly he disrespected Anguirus. Because I told him, fun fact, it was supposed to be Baragon. He goes, it should have been Baragon. I'm like, but it wouldn't have been as impactful to the viewers. Think about it.
It's true.
Because Anguirus, it was more or less a what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say a main name. Not only that, but he was pretty much slated as Godzilla's best ally, and so it made sense that Anguirus had to take the beating because it would help establish just how much of a threat Mechagodzilla is. Whereas if it was Baragon, people would be like, just a jobber, not going to matter.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that movie, that was traumatic, you know, just as a kid to watch that because, you know, Anguirus, you know, despite his origins fighting Godzilla, like, you know, he did become an ally and like he's cute in his own way. So it's like he's kind of like a little puppy dog that, you know, Godzilla would have around. And so when you watch Mechagodzilla, like at first, like almost rip his jaw apart, you know.
He literally King Konged him, which I don't understand how because his hands are literally this. How were they able to make his hands do this? Is what I want to know. because his hands are
Which,
literally nothing but
again, the
this.
MonsterVerse was playing off of that too. They were doing that whole thing. So that was
Not
kind
only
of cool.
MonsterVerse was pretty much giving him a beat down.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Man, I'll quote Rob Rosado. He said at that moment he was embarrassed to be a Godzilla fan. He immediately went to Team Mechagodzilla. Because Godzilla got beat.
He's such a bandwagon jumper. Come on now.
I mean, he was
jumping all over the place, trying to diss my boy Anguirus all the time.
all in good fun. But yeah, it's just like, I mean, that was such an embarrassing beatdown Godzilla took from Mechagodzilla. I mean, I was not expecting that from any.
The key, though. It was so realistic of how Mecha would actually be. Like you think about it. He's a machine. He's not going to get tired.
He can literally go on forever, especially if you give him the right sort of, especially if you build him right. Because I mean, reason why he was able to propel himself because he had rockets on his knees, on his elbows, at his lats, so he could literally boost himself for more speed and power. And I
that's
mean,
what we talk about too is his abilities. Like his abilities have evolved over time, and like the missiles, the beam weapons, the twin maser cannons, hyper cannons.
And now it's a proton, and now his proton screen, which is what it's called in MonsterVerse.
Yeah, plasma grenades. I mean, dude had like so much shit to work with. It's ridiculous. And so,
fun fact, you notice how he got replaced by Mogira in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla 2? I mean, not Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla 2, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. Well, it turns out, fun fact, the reason why it's Mogira, not Mechagodzilla being rebuilt, Toho mentioned Super Mechagodzilla is literally that overpowered. He would have just annihilated Space Godzilla. So they had to dub him down a bit. Just so Space Godzilla seems stronger and more of a threat. Because Super Mechagodzilla would have just easily taken Space Godzilla out. He was that OP.
So we know that the MonsterVerse, they brought back Mechagodzilla for the film, Godzilla versus Kong. So in your mind or your opinion, would you like to see Toho bring him back in some way? And if he did, or if they did, like, what would you like to see in terms of his arsenal? Do you want any changes? Do you want any look difference? What would you like to see if Toho brought him back?
Well, Toho brought him back and was smart. First, it will have to depend on the time frame. Because I feel like if it were to take place in the future, there's so much you could get away with. Because if you ever take place in the present, it's going to be hard to not make it seem super cheesy and make it make sense. Like, it's okay to be cheesy, but at least try to find a way to make it make sense. People be like, okay, this could actually work and be possible in this day and age. Because even without advances in technology, if they try to have him do what Mechagodzilla does in some of the other films, it's like you're kind of like pushing the threshold of cheesiness, fun, and just, this makes sense. So if they would ever take place, say, in the future and say they decide to go to, I feel like if they did animated, they could do so much. You could get away with so much with things being animated.
Yeah, I was doing my reaction to the different Godzilla powers the other day, and I don't like adding animation because, like you said, it's just too much freedom. You can do whatever the fuck you want with it. Whereas with live action, you have to be a little bit more meticulous about how you design something, how it looks, and the story,
and how it moves. Whereas in animation, pretty much people will just not even care because it's animation. They're not gonna critique it as heavily as they would if it was live action. But take place in the future, I wouldn't mind them bringing back the disguised Godzilla, because you probably knows, like, before Godzilla vs. Kong, they were going futuristic. We knew Mechagodzilla was going to be in there because he was in a toy leak. But my prediction was they were going to make it to where, like, he had different things on the side of his back to where it could pretty much give off a holographic version of Godzilla and make him look like Godzilla. Like, when I first saw the trailer of him going through a battleship and destroying Pensacola, Florida, I predicted that it was Mechagodzilla. I'm like, because my prediction was they find a way to make a holographic image around Mechagodzilla and make him seem like it's Godzilla, and that he was going to be the catalyst to make Godzilla Kong fight. Now, probably my prediction was correct. Mechagodzilla was the catalyst, but it's not what happened.
Right.
That was Godzilla that was destroying everything because he felt Ghidorah's presence. there was Godzilla that went through the battleships because he was ticked off that Kong was on board and he didn't like that. But I feel like they could get away with how to make it take place in the future, make him be able to have a holographic, be able to.
Yeah, that's a really great point because I don't think they've even really thought about that because that's holograms are something that we kind of see now with different things in entertainment. So having Mechagodzilla do like just it isn't even like a real suit; it's just a hologram.
He
like
just kind of gives off a holographic image, but it looks real. But it looks
and then like if
enough.
you can destroy that, then that will give away his true identity. So
like you have to find a way to like figure out okay what's going on. Like say it'll obviously be it'll be discovered after a monster fights like Godzilla or Anguirus or something. Like they hit something and it breaks part of that and it causes it to flicker.
The glitch.
There's a glitch, it's a glitch and it's like flickering back and forth towards like there's the image and then it's just flickering on. It's like fading. It's back. It's fading. It's back. And then people are like, wait a minute. And then that's when they realize it's Mechagodzilla. And then I wouldn't mind the force field coming back, but say instead of him spinning his head around and he just has to stay there, like I think it'd be cool if he just gives off something like the holographic image where there's something placed on him to where he can just activate it. Like he could just activate it and then it's just a force field around his entire body to where like energy attacks will reflect it off. Energy attacks won't do anything. If Godzilla still attacks, it will still hurt him. Like it will shock him or give some kind of burn.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like they could do so much with that because
it's definitely one of the kaiju that we could really mess around with the most because it has so many more possibilities because it's robotic.
Robotic. You can literally give him so much ability. You can literally give him so much abilities. I think something that would be cool too is this could be a reference to Berserk. So in his hands, like especially they give him the hands that Mechagodzilla had in Godzilla vs. Kong, they could have it to like in the center. There could be like a place where he could shoot out like a large cannon or a missile. And so, or something like a missile that can literally be the power of like a nuke, almost the power of a nuke just within here. And because in Berserk, when Guts activates the Berserk arm, so the thing too is Guts has a mechanical prosthetic arm, but if he pulls a string, the hand goes down. It turns out there's a cannon right here, and he can just fire out a cannon just like that. Once the Berserk armor activates, the cannon's right here. And all he has to do is just grab someone and then just activate it, and the cannon would just let off. And I think that would be pretty cool.
Wouldn't do that. Might be a little bit too much like Iron Man or something. They might not want to do that just for that similarity.
Probably right. But I think another thing that would be cool is if they have it to like there's chains and wires to like he could extend it. Like say a kaiju is flying around, he could just get his hands, and then they become like a grappling hook and just launch him and just grab the kaiju and drag him down to flying.
Yeah.
Like he could just drag him and just slam him, stuff like that. We still need to have his classic beam attack.
Gigan had a little bit in Final Wars.
Oh yeah, he did. I was thinking more like it's his actual hand. His actual hand, but they can just. And I think another thing too is have him be completely AI. Just give him certain component, but have it be AI. So Mechagodzilla's literally doing everything on his own. That way, he's literally acting on his own accord. And it's like he's still being controlled. He's still being given orders. Like Mechagodzilla destroy the seal, Mechagodzilla protect this country, but it's still Mechagodzilla doing his own thing. Like it's just the AI programming that's allowing him to act on his own free will. And I feel like that could be very good potential to have, especially because it would make sense because especially with AI being big as it's getting, it's just and the technology is just getting more and more advanced for AI. I think that would be pretty cool. I'm not sure what else I would want for Mechagodzilla. But I know, like, for one, is give him back the Godzilla disguise, but have it be he can project a holographic image. Give him back the force field, but have it be built on him to where he can activate and he can still fight. Because that's the other thing too. Is it's like
I actually like the plasma cannon up here too in the chest. They didn't really have that, but I like that.
Oh yeah, I mean they got to bring that back because that's pretty cool. Say his tail can have like a beam attack. Like, here's what I think. Plasma cannon or it could be like a large grenade missile that could be launched out.
Yeah.
Energy beam, but the laser that could come out of his tail can be like it can like the beam from his mouth can just cause concussive damage and still do damage to cities, whereas the laser from the tail can just cut through buildings.
Now, I think that's kind of a missed opportunity too when they did the MonsterVerse. Like they had his breath or beam, like it was red. I would have liked to see like the gold. Like I really thought that, like I think it was Kaiju.
Oh yeah, they could have had it to like when Ghidorah took over.
Yeah,
his eyes go from
I
red to
thought that would have
yellow.
been sweet.
That would have been cool. Or have his tail be able, because like in Godzilla Unleashed, Kiryu has a tail attack to like it jabs. I'm thinking perhaps have a little. You know what Destroyer's pencil tail did, right? To like every time it grabbed it, drained the monster of their energy. Like they can have it to like the tail can just jab into Godzilla and it can absorb some of his energy, and then it can just power him up even more.
That's a good idea too. Yeah.
But yeah,
and
so
that'd be a nice little reference to Ghidorah as well. So.
And then again, have him completely AI, still controlled, but AI. Grappling hook can so he can extend down and grab if a Kaiju's far away. That way he can pull him towards him. And Mortal Kombat fans would take that as a nod to Scorpion. Yeah. And then, of course, bring back holographic image, have it built on him. And then Force Field, have that placed on him as well to where he can activate anytime. Because one thing I didn't like about 1974, even though it was cool, he literally had to be still the entire time as he's doing the Force Field. It's like that's really not that intimidating as a mecha unit that can literally put their own force field on themselves and still fight.
Yeah, that's kind of funny thing is in retrospect. I mean, it was great back then, obviously, but
it's like you look at it now and it's like
I just think that it's alien technology at that point. Like the other versions of mecha have always been more superior to that one in terms of power. Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh, is this the best aliens can do?
Yeah. So I'd say even bring it back as an alien because it would explain more of the technology what he's able to do.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So, Monarch Season 2 is going to be happening. Obviously, Apex is becoming a factor now. Again, this is where kind of the beginning of Apex starts before we see Mechagodzilla. So we know what the end result is, but with Monarch Season 2, maybe 3 going forward, would you like to see Mecha come back in that series in some way? Maybe in a different version.
I feel like he will. It'll just be showing him under construction because we see we see at the end of season 1 that it's an Apex facility on Skull Island, and so we could see glimpses of him in the Monarch show. It'll just be like him being worked on by Apex under the facade that is to protect humanity. Because of course we all know in Godzilla vs. Kong, the reason why he was built is because they want to kill all titans and harvest all power so they can be the true Apex.
Yeah.
And so I think we will see him, but it'll be like glimpses of him being built on. Like we could see schematics and then blueprints, and then we could see like the early stages of them constructing him.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I hope they do that. I really do.
That would be cool because we could see like the process of what it takes to build a giant mechanical kaiju like Mechagodzilla.
Because that series is kind of built to be the more detailed part of the MonsterVerse. That's where we're getting all the backstories and
it's literally explaining everything, tying all loopholes together, having everything connected, and explained everything so well. And it could explain how they made Mechagodzilla to a transformer.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, they literally made.
Of course, you brought up how the details is like.
They literally made him a Trypticon.
Well, we know that at the end of King of the Monsters, Charles Dance's character is retrieving that head of Ghidorah that was left behind. So that's clearly where the skull comes from.
Yep.
So I want to see how that deal goes down, how he's
in the novelization, it turns out there was 2 of them that they got.
What's that? Oh, the novelization?
Yeah, novelization got Godzilla Kong. Turned out there was 2 Ghidorah heads. Charles Dance gave Apex one, and he took the other. Well, and then that's the last we hear of Charles Dance.
Where'd the other one come from?
I am unsure. I just know they took
one.
Okay,
so the book is just different than what they did in the movie.
The book is also like a detailed version of the movie because it also gives you a glimpse of Ren Zaragoza. Like, it kind of paints him more as the antagonist because at the beginning, you remember at the beginning,
Am I assuming though, because they really don't explain a lot with that, but I'm assuming he's a little bit angry about what happened with his dad.
Yeah, pretty much. So like he was jealous that his dad spent more time with Godzilla than him. And so in the book, in the movie, he was actually watching Godzilla destroy an Apex facility.
Yeah.
So in the book, he goes, "Hello, big brother." And then eventually he goes, none of the weapons can destroy it, but I will. He goes, "I'll be coming for you soon."
Yeah, I mean, it's clear what his objective is. He's there working with Apex, so he's clearly anti-Godzilla, so that makes sense,
Yeah, so he's just kind of angry with Godzilla because his dad spent more time with Godzilla than he did him. And so he wanted to destroy Godzilla as revenge against his father.
Yeah. So going forward, what do you think is the long-term legacy of Mechagodzilla in the Kaiju universe? Do you think it's going to have staying power? Do you
I think
he's always going to be remembered?
Yeah, he'll always be remembered because he's in Toho's Big Five. I mean, if we look into MonsterVerse, the only monsters that made live action appearances in films are Toho's Big Five: Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, Ghidorah, and Mechagodzilla have all appeared in the MonsterVerse. So that kind of shows who Toho puts on their pedestal as the top dogs. And so Mechagodzilla is going to be around for a long time. He's always going to be remade. I mean, in the Polygon Netflix trilogy, he made a cameo, though unfortunately, Toho had to cock tease us, and we got a city built out of his remains, and we could have gotten an epic fight scene with that Mechagodzilla in action.
They got way too cute for their own good, and that.
What's worse too is, according to Stephen Miller, they actually released a novelization before that film got released, and it explained that Mechagodzilla was destroyed and thus was going to be in the film, but he was going to be a city built out of him. And it's like, if Toho would have just been honest and actually released that book to the U.S. instead of having it exclusively Japan, more people would have liked it. Would have liked the anime trilogy. But because they had to go and
I don't know, because we always run into the same problem, right? It's always about, we like monsters, we like monster fights. So I can appreciate they're thinking outside the box. It's always cool when they do, but so let's take the Mechagodzilla city. Let's say it is built out of him, but then like somehow, some way, in order to combat Godzilla, it actually can form from that city. So that would have been a cool idea, but they didn't really bring it to that kind of conclusion. They just left it as the remains. And the same thing with Ghidorah. They had a weird, like, 3-snake thing that came from the skies, and it's like, it's kind of cool, but yet it's not Ghidorah.
Not only that, but it was kind of boring and bland how they. I mean, it was interesting how they did Ghidorah. Well, Rob praises this part, the build up to Ghidorah. The build up to him was great, but once he appeared, he was like, "Okay, I'm turning this shit off."
Yeah, I mean, at least what's the singular point? At least tried to bring you some of the monsters that we always loved and some of the fighting. So even though
it turned out Anguirus was a baby.
Yeah.
So that makes Jack. So sorry, Walter. Jack was a baby killer.
Yeah, so it wasn't perfect, but at least attempted a little bit better.
They tried a little bit more, but the issue was they made over complications of the science.
Yeah,
like that's why many people, especially ET and Sis, like even Rob mentioned, if they would have just held off on the scientific BS, and what I would have liked it better. Like many people in ET community, we all agree, the overcomplicated science ruined the story. If they would have overcomplicated the science and just focused more on just writing a story and focus on the kaiju a little bit more, it would have been better. And Rob also stated, and Rob, he doesn't complain about when you show Godzilla, but even he was complaining about that. So that lets you know how bad just how bad they were kind of doing that anime. I mean, they did their best, but it's like one with Godzilla, it was Shin Godzilla 2.0. And
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if you're trying to build story world, and I'm fine with that. Like, I don't mind that too much. Literally, -1 is more about story than it is about Godzilla. He's there, but it's just more about the story. That's fine, but eventually you have to get to the monsters. You just have to.
They're the main point why people watch it.
Yeah, if you're dragging it on too long with the story, people just start losing interest. They don't want to be involved anymore. So you have to eventually get them in there.
Yeah, it's not like a live action film to where you can build up to it. Because Gareth Edwards mentioned Godzilla and Darth Vader work the same. They don't have to be in the film for very long, but when they show up, they have to steal the show. But when it's but if it's an animated show, then it's different. I mean, let's look at Gamma Rebirth. I mean, yes,
that was so well done. That was so,
and it was made by the same guy who did the Godzilla Netflix trilogy, and I think I heard he also did Shin Godzilla and GMK.
I don't know about that, but it makes sense if he did. I mean, see, Shin,
he did GMK and the Netflix trilogy, but pretty much, yes, each episode was an hour long, and yes, it focused on the characters, but halfway through, you started to focus on the monsters.
Yeah,
like you at least saw Gamma like a lot more than you saw Godzilla in the entire singular point anime.
Hold on, sorry, got a message.
Gosh,
okay, yeah. So I mean, a lot of great points there. So I do want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me. This is a cool subject, of course.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. I'm glad to be here.
So tell people what you have coming along. I know you don't actually have, well, you do have a YouTube channel, but you're mainly about gaming.
Yeah, I'm mainly about gaming. And so like my recent Monster Hunter video got posted this week. And so I'll probably work on another Monster Hunter video, or I may do a demo a friend of mine and I did yesterday called Chained in the Backrooms. And which that one was kind of janky, very wobbly, but you guys may get some entertainment from that. But then I'll be back to doing my Backrooms videos. And which my one I did last week got 140 views, which is the most I've ever gotten for any video ever.
Nice.
But I'm also in the glimpse of, I've been doing a bit of brainstorming, and I'm thinking about doing a video tool like you can probably add me to finally the Sci-Fi Society Collective. But I'm thinking about doing.
Well, that's what I want. I want, of course, it's up to you what you do with your channel. But like, if you put.
Well, there's another channel I'm planning on doing. I'm brainstorming it, but I think I'm going to call it From the Wolf. Within the Wolf Den, and that's pretty much going to be stories I wrote, and I'm going to have AI generate images to the best that AI can generate. AI is a pain to read, I'll tell you with that. But pretty much I'm going to have stories I wrote generated with AI generate images told by AI, and I'm brainstorming to say I'm going to get everything worked out. And that's going to be stuff I'll post, and hopefully with that can be added to the Sci-Fi Society Collective.
Most definitely. Yeah, same thing with Connor. If he starts getting more content out there, I'll start adding more people to it because, you are part of the Sci-Fi Society. So it's just a matter of the material that we have out there. But yeah, I'm waiting. And if you need me to collab with you on some things, I can do that as well.
Oh, definitely. It's just at the moment I'm trying to brainstorm how I'm going to have AI tell the story. And trying to get AI to generate the right images.
Yeah. As for me, immediately tonight at 8 p.m., I'll be getting together again with Mr. Tony the Dead as we review his pick, Funny Man, which was definitely an interesting movie, to say the least, for the Ghouls of Midnight. So that's what's coming up immediately for me. Again, Big Bad Wolf, one of my part of my pack of the Nordic werewolves.
The Wolves of Romulus.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody who's watching and supporting this channel, Meltdown Radio Podcast. Please go to his channel if you enjoy gaming, and please subscribe and like on his channel as well. And be on the lookout for more material from him as well as for us. Neko definitely appreciates the support. And
support Neko so she doesn't kill us.
Yeah, so she's like,
she may unleash the spiders on us.
Nah, I got them over there. They're on the wraps. All right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. This is the Military Podcast.
Later.
You see me for you